Our community's collective heart was broken.
The task force investigating the case of Thomas Valva unveiled its recommendations. The child left in a freezing garage allegedly by his father. The death unearthed a shocking litany of missed cues, suspected child abuse for years. Suffolk officials admit their child protective services system failed.
A system that placed Thomas and his brothers in the custody of this man. Of a system that did not hear the pleas of people trying to protect Thomas. CPS will never operate the same way again. And that is appropriate, because what happened to Thomas Valva can never happen again.
Hey guys, welcome back to True Crime with Shannon, where I cover missing persons, unsolved cases, crime news, and more. Alright, so we are not done with the Valva case, Justice for Little Tommy Valva, which, like I told you guys like last week, we've got Angela Pollina on deck to get hers pretty soon, and we also got some updates on that, and as well as some updates on the CPS Grand Jury that's just never happened since 2020 when we were promised that would happen. But before we get into all that, I always like to feature a missing persons poster on the channel, so let me pull today's missing persons poster up. Today's missing person is going to be Kaylin Calteaux. She's 16 years old. She was last seen on Sunday, October 23rd at her home on Saltville Road in Warsaw, New York, and was discovered missing the following morning on the 24th of October. Calteaux, and I apologize if I'm saying this poor girl's last name wrong, is described as a white female who is 5 foot 2 inches tall and weighs 116 pounds with brown hair and brown eyes. They're asking if you have any information on Kaylin to please contact the authorities at 585-786-2255, or you can always call 911, of course. They have an anonymous email as well. You can send it to WNYmissing and unidentified at yahoo.com. So if you have any information on this missing juvenile out of New York, please contact the authorities. So, the lawyer for potential monster-in-law, Angelina Pollina, is stating she did not commit the act, so therefore she's not guilty of any of this stuff that they're claiming. And of course, we know she's charged with the same charges as Michael Valva just became guilty of, and the jury stated that. So she's trying to claim that, oh, it's all Michael's fault. And like I've said, I've heard some backstories on her, and I'm going to work on getting some interviews set up, you guys, on that. So stay tuned as we get closer to her trial. So there she is right there in her mug shot. Doesn't she look pleased? All right, so this one here is from the Patchogue Patch. Long Island, New York. The attorney for Angela Pollina, former fiancé of Michael Valva, an ex-NYPD officer found guilty last week in the murder of his son, Thomas 8, spoke to Patch Thursday about the verdict and about his client's upcoming trial. Valva, along with his then fiancée, Pollina, who will have a separate trial, they were both arrested on January 24th, 2020, and charged with second-degree murder and 4 counts of endangering the welfare of a child. Each faces 25 years to life in prison when sentenced. Of course, we know both have pleaded not guilty. And that didn't help for Michael because the jury got him last week. Jurors on Friday evening convicted Valva of second-degree murder and 4 counts of endangering the welfare of a child for the death of his 8-year-old son, Thomas, who froze to death in his father's garage in 2020. His sentencing is scheduled for December 8th, and he faces 25 years to life behind bars. I hope he gets life. I know you guys most of y'all agree with me on that one. During Valva's trial, jurors heard emotional testimony from teachers, administrators, and others who painted a picture of Thomas and his older brother, both with autism, living in a house of horrors where they were beaten, starved, sent to school in urine-soaked pull-ups, and made to sleep in a frigid garage with no blankets or pillows, according to Suffolk Assistant County District Attorney Carrie Ann Kelly. After the jury delivered a verdict of guilty on all counts for Valva, Pollina's trial is slated to follow. According to Pollina's defense attorney, Matthew Toohey, which we're going to get to know his name, her next court date is on November 22nd, and it will be focused on scheduling, trying to get an idea of when we can try this case. When asked when that might be after Valva's verdict, Suffolk County District Attorney Ray Turney said his office stands ready. The case is not over here. This case will continue, and we will continue to seek justice, Turney said. Toohey said he anticipates that jury selection could take place in January or February, but nothing has yet been decided. I hope that they can get this done quickly after the holidays. Let's get this done, and let's get justice for Tommy, guys. When asked about Valva's verdict, he emphasized that there are two separate trials. Valva and Pollina, he said, are separate. Their actions are separate, and their culpability is separate. Of course, Toohey said, he did it. He's guilty, and he did it. Yeah, we know that. However, she's guilty as much as him. Of course, I have to make sure you guys know, that's my thought and opinion on that. However, of Pollina, Toohey added, she did not commit the act. He did it. The prosecution spent a tremendous amount of time vilifying her actions and words in the months prior. The reason they're doing that is because they don't have her committing the act. Well, that's true. He really did commit the final act that killed little Tommy. During Valva's trial, one witness, a plumber, said he saw Pollina throw a child down the stairs. There was also evidence shown of text reflecting Pollina's frustration with the incontinence of Thomas and his older brother, and her stating that she did not want them in the house. Valva's defense team painted an image of Valva as a man stressed over finances, who had nowhere to go with his boys if he had to leave the home he shared with Pollina. Well, we all said before, he should have given his boys back to their mother, Justina, and he should have dealt with his own, whatever he wanted to do with his fiancée. If he wanted to be with her so bad and he didn't want to put his boys first, he should have given them back to his ex-wife. As much as they don't like her, if you're going to charge her with anything, they might as well charge the cleaning lady too, Toohey said. A cleaning woman was heard on the video arriving at the home on the morning Thomas died. She testified at Valva's trial. How does he figure that? It becomes a mob mentality because she's romantic with the guy, Toohey said of Pollina. She certainly made mistakes with the boys. However, she did not commit the act. His goal, too, he said, is to get jurors to say, you know what, we don't like some of the things she said, but she didn't do it. He said in hopes to find jurors with the emotional intelligence to say they're going to follow the law. He added, we're a nation of laws. We're not going to convict her of something she didn't do. On the morning Thomas died, Toohey added, it was Valva who brought Thomas into the backyard naked in 19-degree weather and washed him with cold water. Thomas then began falling. He died of hypothermia, according to the Suffolk County Medical Examiner's Office. Discussing the trial ahead, Toohey said, people are tough. We're at a stage now where people don't want to follow the law. They're saying, lock her up. Who cares? He added, we've got an old-fashioned fight coming up. I'm really going to advocate for her. Gee, at least somebody is, huh? We're not going to advocate for her, those of us that are all justice for Tommy. And comparing the upcoming proceedings to Valva's trial, Toohey said it will be a different vibe when I'm in there. All right, he's got some fighting words. Thomas and his brother were forced to sleep in the frigid garage as temperatures outside plummeted to 19 degrees, prosecutors said. When he died, Thomas's body temperature was 76.1 degrees, 20 degrees lower than it should have been. Witnesses took the stand during the trial, painting an image of what Kelly called a house of horrors, where the two boys were sleeping on the cold floor and eating their meals in the garage alone, while the rest of the family, including the dog, were gathered in the warmth upstairs. Teachers recalled the boys coming to school in urine-soaked clothes, wearing pull-ups and cold, always cold, their hands and faces red and chapped. And they said the boys were starving, crying in hunger, and searching the trash and floor for crumbs. Man, every time I hear these details, it just really tears you up. Defense attorneys, however, maintained that Pollina was the dominant person in the relationship, whose trigger was the boys' incontinence. Looking back to September 2017, when Valva and Pollina moved into 11 Bittersweet Lane in Central Moriches, with both Thomas and his brother autistic and finding it difficult to communicate, the boys were punished if they didn't use their words. Given no food, the prosecution said. Although both boys had been toilet trained when they began living with Valva and Pollina in 2017, by 2018, they were back in pull-ups. Due to their accidents, they were forced to sleep on the floor, on pads meant for training dogs, Assistant District Attorney Laura Newcomb said. It's just horrific. And she added, there are the texts. Newcomb read one that said the boys, if they refused to listen, would be put out in the snow. Or another, I will beat them until they bleed, Newcomb read, and texted Valva to Pollina, when I get home, I'm going to effing handcuff him, Newcomb said. Witnesses, including teachers at Thomas's school, have sobbed on the stand as they recounted seeing Thomas and his brother starving, cold with bruises and scratches and eating crumbs from the floor. At closing arguments Thursday, defense attorney John LaTurco said despite the abuse, Valva loved his sons. Michael did not want Thomas to die, he said. Well, we all kind of question that one, don't we? Showing a photo of Thomas from June 2019, taken at school with a bruise on his face, Kelly countered, take a look at the expression on his face. It tells you everything you need to know. Look into his eyes. The child was living in a house of horrors. Thomas's mother, Justina Zubko Valva, pleaded for help on her Twitter page before her son died. In 2020, Zubko Valva filed a $200 million wrongful death suit. Zubko Valva has not responded to requests for comment. In June, a judge ruled that portions of the $200 million lawsuit filed by Zubko Valva after Thomas died can move forward, a judge ruled. So, they're obviously, we can see what they're playing here. Pollina's lawyer is going to play she didn't do the act, so she's just definitely not as guilty as Michael. So, is a new jury going to buy it? I sure hope not. I think she's full of it, and she's just as guilty as Michael is, and that's the only thing I do agree with. I think from what I've heard about Pollina, I think she probably was the instigator. I really think she was. I think this woman right here, she was the instigator. Because of her control over the finances, she told, whatever she wanted, Michael did it. So, whereas he should have taken his sons and taken them and lived somewhere else, or like I previously said, he should have given his sons back to his ex-wife. Justina, she should have been able to have those boys. If he did not want to take care of his boys like he's supposed to, like a parent's supposed to, he should have given those boys back to their mother. All right, so that's that. And now we're going to get into the CPS situation that seems to have just been dragging along since 2020. So let's pull up that and let's discuss that. So this is from News 12. This was back in March of 2020. And so here was what was going on in March 2020 in regards to the CPS being accounted for their actions or inactions, as it may be.
And Suffolk DA Tim Sini calling for a special grand jury to investigate the death of Thomas Valva. The 8-year-old died of hypothermia after his father, Michael Valva, allegedly forced him to sleep in the freezing garage of their Central Moriches home. That was in January. The DA says the lawsuit against Michael Valva shows the need for a special grand jury to examine the circumstances around Thomas's death.
So that has yet to happen, and let's discuss that. We'll pull up the current update on this situation. So we have yet to get that special grand jury that former Suffolk DA Sini promised back in March of 2020. And he is yet to kind of go through that. And there's been excuse after excuse for that one here. So I'm actually reached out to the Suffolk County on this. And also, I know I've seen Newsday, and I believe the Patch also reached out to them. So we'll see if we get any answers on that. But I'm not holding my breath, you guys, because they're not going to answer for that. I'd be surprised. I'm going to give them the benefit of the doubt. I would really like to see them answer for when this is actually going to happen. All right, so this was basically the current situation, like we said, since 2020. And this has come off of the Newsday update on this case here. In March 2020, then District Attorney Tim Sini announced he would impanel a special grand jury to investigate the system's response to Thomas Valva's abuse and death. Sini now says COVID-19 and the original scheduling of Pollina and Michael Valva's trials for 2021 stalled the panel. Well, gee, that's a good excuse, isn't it? Oh, it's all about COVID-19 and these other two trials. I think you can handle it. Come on, we've done a lot of stuff since COVID-19. March 2020, and we're looking at November of 2022, and this panel has yet to happen. That special grand jury investigation must happen now. It must determine how the abuse was allowed to continue, why CPS did so little, how Valva's status as a cop affected his interactions with CPS and Suffolk officers, and why the frequent terrified complaints of the boy's mother, who has sued the county for $200 million, were ignored. It should also assess whether the rule changes for Suffolk's CPS made in response to Thomas's death, including reducing caseloads, getting a supervisor involved anytime a case reaches 3 allegations, and increased training on responding to cases involving children with special needs, are helping, and what else is needed. And a county legislative panel that has been denied information on the case seemingly contradiction of the law must renew its push for the information and make its own assessment. So they're saying that now that Michael Valva has been found guilty on all counts, and then we have Angelina hitting trial probably January, February of next year, that now this panel needs to happen. What happened to it from March 2020 till now? This panel should have been already happening. It should have already happened. So I want to know if CPS has followed through with any of this stuff. So my next move is I followed up with Suffolk County, the current DA's office, and I'm going to follow up with CPS. I really don't think they're going to respond to me, but maybe the rest of you guys, maybe we all need to flood them with emails and ask them, hey, so what has changed since the Thomas Valva, murder? What's happened? Little Tommy asked you guys. He asked CPS for help. He asked them for help in school and all these other things that were going on, and they've seen it all. They never helped this little boy or his brother. They failed Tommy so miserably, and they need to account for that. And that's the one thing that Valva's attorneys got it right. CPS was not present at Valva's trial. And I think that they need to account for every failure they had in association with Thomas and his brother Anthony. Those boys were failed miserably, and Tommy has the ultimate sacrifice for it. So yeah, Michael Valva and Angelina Pollina, yeah, they're mainly to blame here on this. But CPS and the system, you guys failed this little boy. How horrific! You failed little Tommy, and he's no longer here. He's never going to live another day. And I feel sorry for his mother and his 2 brothers, because now you've ruined, you've scarred them for life. But there's so many cases like of CPS failing children all over the country. It's just so sad. But we need to make them be accountable for this. We need to follow up and make sure these folks account for this. There's no excuse for letting a child be abused and killed. There's just no excuse for it whatsoever. The lack of enough staff, too many cases, whatever their excuses are, it's got to stop. Children need to be priority. They can't protect themselves. They need help. And this little boy asked for help, and they didn't give it to him. So, all right, guys, that's all I have for today. I wanted to get this one out because I am running super duper early tomorrow, and I'm gonna probably try to do I'm going to try to do a live every week or every other week. I'm going to try to get into that, and I'll try to do something maybe on late Saturday. I'll let you guys know. But again, the justice for little Tommy, I'm right here, guys. I'm not going anywhere, and I appreciate you guys' support and keeping subscribed to the channel. And I'll let you guys know if we do any lives for Tommy. And I'm hoping to do an interview or two in the coming weeks, regarding Angela Pollina. So if anybody else would like to talk or speak up about Michael or Angela, about anything, or if you have any information, my email is in the information of every single video. You could email me, and you can decide you don't want me to mention your name. I could totally take that as well. I just want to make sure we report factual information on the channel. All right, so that's it for today, guys. I hope you have a great rest of the day. And with that said and done, stay safe.